the record. Yeah, this morning I didn't do that. For some reason, I thought it was automatically doing it. So
Oh, no.
sad about that, but you get better each time. And gonna start the live. There's a humming. I don't know what that is. It's a computer. All right, I hope that is on my timeline. All righty, I think we are officially going live. Let me
Perfect.
just do one other thing. I keep hearing this humming. Can you hear humming?
No.
Okay, well, that's good. All right, so send this one over. All right. Well. Super exciting to connect with you, Monty. Oh my gosh. So let me focus. Good evening, good evening. We won't wait for folks to join because the replay is just as good. I want to be sensitive to your time. I know you worked today. And so let's just get started. So I'm Dr. Shanae Simmons with the Collective Wellness Institute. I am joined this evening with Chelsea Lawrence, the wonderful, beautiful Chelsea Lawrence, who is a local licensed mental health therapist here in the Tampa area. She specifically serves as a school psychologist in Pinellas. But rather than me telling you, I want to give Chelsea a chance to talk to you about who she is and what she does out of her on her own words, using your own words. Tell people, who are you, Chelsea? What do you do?
As you said, I'm Chelsea Lawrence. I started off as a school psychologist. I went to Florida International University and got my specialist degree. I graduated in 2020. I did an internship in Hillsborough County Public Schools, and I've been working with Pinellas County Schools ever since then. And then a few years ago, I realized I really enjoy doing therapy more than I like writing reports and all of the other stuff that comes with being in the school system. So I went back to school and took some classes at Troy University while being a registered mental health counselor intern. And I just got licensed in September of this year. I started my own private practice, so I still work in the school system part-time, and then I work in private practice. I mostly specialize in seeing clients ages 10 to 35, but I also do accelerated resolution therapy with people, anyone over the age of 18.
Awesome sauce. So you kind of answered one of the questions that I was going to ask you, like, how did you decide to be a therapist? But you did say you shared that you did some work in the school and you learned that you still wanted to help people, but you wanted to change how you helped people. If you could give folks a better understanding about what school psychologists do? I think there's some confusion around what one can expect from a school psychologist.
Thank you for asking that. I was just hanging out with some people from Illinois, and they were saying in Illinois, school psychologists only test. And in Florida, it doesn't matter what county you're in, everything's different from county to county. So in Pinellas County, school psychologists are very well rounded in their jobs. We do behavior plans, we do counseling, we test students for exceptional student education. So, like if their parent thinks they have dyslexia, or if they think that they have autism, especially in early preschool, we do testing for that. And then we do intervention. So typically before we test a student to see if they have a disability, we do interventions to see if we can get them on grade level just by doing interventions with them. But in other counties, like I know in Duval County, school psychologists mostly just test in place. And in Pinellas, we don't do that. We try to get to know the kids and be involved in every step of the process, make sure kids aren't being retained when they shouldn't be retained. In Pinellas specifically, we have a lot of Black students that are placed in ESE disproportionately to white students. So we're really involved with that as well.
Thank you for sharing. I could go so many different directions with that. But the first thing I want to ask you to expound on, you use the term, I know what you mean, but you use the term exceptional. And I think there can be some confusion about what that means. Can you elaborate in the school context of testing, academics, academic success, and categorization of or placement of students? What does it mean if a student is exceptional or
Yes.
has been
So,
identified as such?
yes. I think a lot of people know it as special education. And here in Florida, we have different categories to become eligible for special education. So for autism, we do like rating scales. We observe the student in different places, environments, in the cafeteria, in the classroom. And then students can be placed in ESE, like in another classroom, which would be a self-contained, or they can just have an IEP, which is an individualized plan that would go with them from school to school or state to state if they moved. And you can have an IEP for other health impairment, if you have like ADHD, or if you have some other type of diagnosis that interferes with your learning, or like I said earlier, dyslexia, dyscalculia, different things like that.
Awesome, thank you. So, you also mentioned in your last explanation about what school psychologists do, you also mentioned or emphasized some disparities or increased prevalence for Black students. Can you talk a little bit about your commitment to that population, where that or where that comes from?
Yes. Ever since I worked at a school in Miami, I have just loved working at like Title I schools and being with minority students. And then actually in grad school and looking at data and seeing how differently Black students or minority students, Hispanic students as well, are treated differently. Most recently, last year, Dr. Simmons knows I really struggled with the school I was placed at. Here in St. Petersburg or in Pinellas County, we have schools that are called Transformation Zone schools. And the NAACP actually sued Pinellas County a few years ago because all of the Black students at the schools on the South Side, which are very segregated schools, I think they're all like 95% Black. None of the students were learning. And now I would say they still aren't learning. So it was my mission to try and get change to happen, but it's bigger than me, which I came to realize. But yeah.
But your efforts still matter. Your efforts still matter. I think one of the things that was noteworthy for me when we met, you pursued me specifically, supervision from me, specifically for that reason. Your commitment to the population and wanting to have insight from a supervisor of the same demographic. So it's noteworthy. Don't be discouraged. You may not be able to change an entire system, but if you are able to change care for a student, for a class of students, then you're still impacting change. So keep your head up. So a lot of things you have seen, obviously, as a school psychologist, and then transitioning to a licensed mental health counselor. What would you say you learned? What would be the greatest lesson you learned about yourself along the way?
Ooh, that is a good question. I guess I just learned how much I care and how much I'll do. I didn't realize that I would stay late, come in early, speak up. I feel like I really found my voice in the last few years, like speaking up to principals when I don't think 20 kids should be retained and saying that to their faces. And sometimes it not ending well, but being able to speak up for kids that can't speak up for themselves. I think that really surprised me. Yeah.
It's awesome. And thank you for that. It's very interesting because in yesterday's supervision, I was speaking with two of the therapists about the role of the counselor and oftentimes negating the fact that part of the role of the counselor is an advocate. When
Yeah.
we can't ignore the fact that we still have an advocacy role, and that can require you to do things that stretch your comfort zone, maybe move a little bit away from best practice at times, or even challenge some of your own ideology. But being an advocate for the student or the client is essential to that client's well-being. You're one of the few people, the therapist is one of the few people that the client will ever tell a full truth to,
That's
if
true.
if they tell a full truth.
Yes.
And sometimes they need that additional support to be able to get that truth to the movers and the shakers in their lives. So you spoke to that in that, sharing that part about who you are, what you learned about yourself. So I'd like to know, let's see, what else do I want to know? Let's see. You told so much at the beginning, I have to rethink. Okay, so you transitioned industries. What would you say the biggest adjustment was for you shifting from school psychologist to licensed mental health counselor?
Hmm. I feel like people don't realize how different the roles are. Um, Even with being a school psych in the schools, when I'm talking to kids, I feel like it's more of a conversation and I don't really have to talk to the parents and be involved in the schools. But in private practice, you're more involved with the whole family, especially when working with kids. Um, so that has been a really big adjustment for me. But I also enjoy it because I feel like parents can help change quicker, and they're usually part of the problem. So getting them to be able to understand their child more has been really good for me. Yeah.
That's good. That's good. Earlier today, we interviewed with Renee Davis, who also shared a similar sentiment that when working with children, that you are often working with parents. In
Mhm.
our practice, I insist that if you're working with children, you work with the parents. And so, for any parent who comes across this video or the one from earlier, or even if you uh, don't particularly go to these ladies, just know that if you are going to utilize counseling to aid in your process of helping your children, please be a committed contributor to that process. It makes things go quicker. It helps fill in the gaps. It helps not to scapegoat the child and make the child be the sole responsible party for things that are not going well in their life, especially since if they're a child, also unlikely to be able to change most of the circumstances independently. So, note to parents, participate, get involved, and build your own relationship with the therapist. So, something you wish you had known before you entered the field. Now, you went to two different disciplines, so you can choose whichever one you want to choose: school psychologist or a licensed mental health counselor. Something you wish you had known before entering the field.
I'll choose school psychology because with counseling, I just love, like, I don't feel like I'm working when I do it. It's just so fun. Like, d- yeah. And school psychology, I hope I'm not making it sound horrible. People,
No.
yes, become school psychologists. I just wish I had known more about school systems as a whole. And I just think, not just in Florida, in all of America, school should be less focused on what kids can't do and more of what they can do. And also, I wish kids could be kids more. I wish there was more recess, more time for them to socialize and learn what they like. In private practice now, I feel like a lot of my teen clients, I'm trying to get them to understand that you're more than just school. Let's build up who we are outside of school, because school isn't forever, hopefully. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Um, you mentioned your teen clients. Are teens your primary client?
No, I feel like right now I have a good mix of um, middle schoolers, high schoolers, and millennial young adults, college students. Yeah, I have everyone right
Okay.
now.
Do you have any favorites? Preferred, ideal?
I just, yeah, I love all of them and mixing it up. Like in one day I'll see an adult and then I'll see a kid and then I'll see a teen and then I'll do accelerated resolution therapy. So it's all, yeah, you never know what's going to happen during the day. It's,
And
yeah.
that is the same thing Renee said this
Oh,
morning.
wow.
She did. She said the same thing. She said she initially didn't think that she would enjoy working with a younger population. No, no, initially she didn't want to work with a younger
Oh,
population, but she is working with them. And then she initially didn't think she would enjoy working with couples, and she's absolutely loving working with couples. And
wow.
so, yeah, she said the same, she had the same sentiment that the day is broken up and she's able to, just kind of have that variety and it helps sustain her. So
Yeah.
that is so cool to hear you both say the same thing on the same day.
I actually did my first, which is really weird. I did my first telehealth appointment yesterday because I love in person. I was like, no telehealth. But when mom just broke me down, I was like, fine, I'll try it. And then afterwards, I was like, why have I not been doing this? It's so much fun.
Yes, yes, they are actually, reasonably easy to do
Mm.
with the right person on the other end of the camera, not the person driving down the highway. You worrying about whether or not they're gonna have an accident with you on the screen.
You should be
Um,
home. Yes.
yes, exactly. But just buckle up. You definitely have to be mindful about that. I have had my fair share. Like, are you driving? Can you pull over?
Absolutely.
So, again, the similarities are great because we also spoke a little bit this morning about accelerated resolution therapy.
Oh,
And would you mind sharing who you tend to use that modality with?
Yes. A lot of clients that seek me out already have a talk therapist that they work with, but they're just stuck and want to work on something else, typically adults. Um, I think my oldest has been like maybe in their 60s, but um, a lot of people come in wanting to work on like sexual trauma, um, from all ages of life, like, and then some people, when I was first learning, I practiced on people and did like family deaths, and they saw resolutions very quickly. Like one person hadn't slept in the year since their mother had passed, and they told me that they slept for like 12 hours straight the night after for the first time since their mom's
Look at
passing.
that.
Hmm.
Look at that. Again, the similarities are so great. Um, Earlier today, the sentiment was also expressed that there are some who see changes immediately after the first interaction. And we talked a little bit about the fact that in Black and Brown communities, and sometimes religious communities as well, the modality can be misunderstood and there could be some suspicion. Have you encountered clients that struggle with being comfortable when you attempt to express what you're going to do?
Not really. I explain it beforehand and I just make sure that they understand. And I feel like a lot of people like that if they don't want to say anything, they don't have to, because a lot of people, the trauma that they're working on, they've never told anyone about it. They might have written it down on like my intake paperwork, but have never talked about it since or before. So they really like that they don't have to say anything if they don't want to. But no, I haven't experienced anyone not really understanding or.
Okay, very good. What percentage of your private practice load would you say comprises of you working with individuals with trauma?
Probably about half right now.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. And so, are you able to identify any themes that you're seeing in clients, any traumatic themes? A lot of times when we use the word trauma, people think someone was raped or, 9/11, but trauma is a huge category of incidents or experiences. So, are you able to unpack that a little bit for us and share some of the themes and patterns that you've experienced?
A lot of mine have unfortunately been sexual trauma from both family members and people outside of the family. But I also do have people, every client that I have come in, whether it's just to do accelerated resolution therapy or if they want to do traditional talk therapy, I have them complete the adverse childhood experiences survey.
Mhm.
And we go through that in our intake. And I tell them that they don't have to talk about it if they don't want to. They can bring it up later, or we can bring it up at a set time and at a future date. But a lot of them usually mark off the one that talks about, like, did you have someone in your household that was yelling at you, demeaning you? I feel like most of my clients that have trauma have that one checked off on their surveys.
Interesting. And so the Adverse Childhood Experiences Survey is a survey comprised of 10 questions, and those questions are related to adverse things that have happened that can happen to a child before the age of 18. Do you find resistance from adult clients? You said you saw someone as mature as 60. Do you find resistance for someone who's maybe more mature, having to go back and talk to you about or record some things that have happened before the year of 18?
Yes. Well, only one so far that had resistance for that. But everyone else has been super open and wanting to talk about it and start moving through and talking about what they've experienced.
Okay. And then do you have an additional trauma assessment do you monitor for traumas beyond that age?
Um, I don't think so.
Okay.
Mhm.
So they kind of come in and tell you what they're wanting to address, and you get some history, and then from there you unpack what's
Yes.
necessary to bring them to a resolution.
Yeah, and usually they have something traumatic going on currently.
Ah, active trauma.
Exactly.
Thanks. Are there themes of those current traumas? Are those also typically sexual abuse issues, or are those current traumas something else?
Some of them are just unhealthy relationships where things have happened that probably shouldn't have happened, and then staying in that relationship too long. Um, but yeah, everyone's pretty much different for.
Sure. Is it your experience that folks can see the connection between their ACE score and their adult challenges?
Oh,
Are people able to make that connection?
I don't think so. Sometimes when I point it out, they're like, "Oh, okay, now I see." And they don't understand all of the different health implications that that can have on them now or later on in life. But I try to explain to them, and I have um, the Adverse Childhood Experiences book, The Deepest Well, in my office, and I let them know that Dr. Nadine Burke Harris has done lots of research, and talk therapy is going to help lower the chances of them having those heart or whatever else other type of health problems come with having a high ACE score. But yeah, they typically understand after we talk about it.
After you talk about it, you have to help them make the
Yeah.
connection.
Yeah.
So, for those who are watching who may not be familiar with the ACE score and Dr. Nadine Burke, first of all, she's amazing. That work is amazing. The Deepest Well, if you have not read it and you're in this space, you should read it. But when we talk about a high ACE score, we're talking about a score that of 10 is 3 and above. Some say 4 and above, but many agree that 3 and above is indicative of a high ACE score. It should be noted that the 10 items on the Adverse Childhood Experience questionnaire are not the only traumatic things that can happen to a child. They just happen to be the ones that were validated in a particular study on this topic and that were converted to a questionnaire. Sometimes when folks are not really ready to have a conversation about their history, they'll look for the thing that gives them the exit. And so it's always very interesting to see someone maybe get a 0 or a 1 on their score, and well, it can't be that. And when you unpack their history a little bit more, there's evidence of what we call little t's. Are you comfortable sharing a little bit about the little t's, the things that oftentimes get minimized um, in the population that you serve?
Um, Sorry, I can't remember. What are little
Like the
T?
bullying, a need for approval. So it's not like being beaten per
Yeah.
se, but not being seen and not being heard.
Yeah. And I feel like a lot of my clients don't realize that they've struggled with that in the past or now. So I try to make a point to point that out to them and figure out how can we start healing all of that for sure.
Yes. So I mentioned this earlier today. When you encounter person after person after person with trauma, your own exposure can be impactful. What are some of the things that you do to stay well?
That's a great question. Um, One thing I've been doing, I think for the past like 7 or 8 years, is when I wake up in the morning, I write 3 things in my gratitude journal from the day before. And I feel like that helps me so much just throughout the day. Even if I am working with a hard client, I'll be like, ooh, this was a really good session. I'm going to write that down in my gratitude journal tomorrow. Um, and then I try and read um, every day. I meditate and stretch every single morning. I make sure I hang out with friends and work out, just everything that I can do to stay sane, and then reducing my caseload at my other job so that I could feel more whole and have energy instead of working like 40 to 45 hours a week and then going to see clients. I find that I have so much more energy and brain space now
Yes.
that, yeah.
Yes, yes. It's funny you say brain space, because, and in the same sentence of energy, because I found that a lot of times people think that they don't understand why someone who uses their mind for their work is exhausted. They
Mm,
think, well, you're not outside laying bricks and, you know, digging holes. But it's like, no, using your brain is equally exhausting. And
mhm.
so I love the fact that you share, like, you have to actively do some things to keep your energy up, because this work it is heavy. It
Oh
is
yeah.
heavy.
Yes. Yeah.
So let's see. What would you say, if any, anything specific you might have learned from your colleagues that has stuck to you? Some nuggets or some tips that you've learned from colleagues, and it could be sometimes we learn what not to do. So
Oh,
I'm just it could be either what to do or what not to do, but that kind of guides you in your practice.
oh. Um, I feel like I've learned so much from my supervisors and from other interns. I try to not stress myself out and not compare myself to other therapists. I just wrote down like 3 goals that I want to accomplish every time I have a session, like make sure my clients feel seen by me, heard, all that good stuff. And then also, I know when I was searching for my own therapist over the past few years, I really didn't like when people didn't call me back or didn't respond to my email. So I make sure that I respond to everyone, even if it's, I am so sorry, I'm not accepting clients right now, or I'm available at this time to talk. I just like them knowing that if they need someone right now, I am available for them, or I can send them some referrals to people that can better help them. And then I also feel that I learned that it's important to practice within my scope. And if I get an inquiry from someone that I don't think I can help, or that I know other people are better suited to help, I am quick to here are some referrals to people that can help you. Um, yeah.
It's good. That is really good. A lot of um a lot of people have complained that they have had difficulty getting return calls from their from therapists that they inquired. It's actually it's a double-edged sword, because in some ways it's embarrassing in the for the field. It's like, man, my colleagues, somebody's not returning someone's call. But on the other side, I completely understand many therapists, like yourself, you operate as a single sole proprietor, and they don't have administrative teams to do all of that. So if they're in session, can't
Exactly.
answer the phone, can't
Mhm.
hold that thought about your father. I got to answer this inquiry, right? So it's a double-edged sword. It's an opportunity in the industry for us to think about how we do things. But I love the fact that you reflected on that and you make a point to be responsive. I do think it's the professional thing to do. I also recognize that for some folks, their capacity is what it is. And if we tell the truth about the last 3 years, really, this has exploded. You know,
Yeah, that's
the
true.
the openness and willingness to have conversations about mental health has just magnified in ways we really probably never really anticipated, because it used to be such a hard topic. And for many people, the pandemic was like the Oprah effect for someone who's makes it on Oprah's favorite things list. You ever heard of that Oprah effect? Like, if you have a thing that Oprah really likes, and she starts telling,
Yeah.
the world, like, the
Mm,
floodgates open.
yeah.
So it's just a very interesting time, an opportunity for continued innovation. So that's really cool. And the other thing that you mentioned was recognizing the scope, your scope of work, and not overextending yourself or trying to work in a space that you're not comfortable or skilled at, which continues to speak to the fact that sometimes we just got to keep looking. Sometimes
Mhm.
you got to keep looking. One size It's not one size fits all. So
Yes.
with that in mind, I don't think I asked you. Did I ask you who your ideal client was?
Oh, I don't know if you did. My ideal client will be between the ages of 10 and 35
Okay.
old. Um, and usually kids, if they're struggling with like ADHD, anxiety, depression, that is where I like to stay. Adults, more relational issues, that's fine for me too, on top of all the other things I just mentioned. And then if people um, want to reach out for accelerated resolution therapy and they're above the age of 18, my ideal client is anyone. Yeah, I do that with anyone.
Okay. So is it fair to say that if they're not 18 or older, no accelerated resolution therapy for them?
Not for me, but
Okay.
someone
Yeah,
might.
that's okay. No, that's totally okay. Actually, another one of uh, the clinicians who will be joining us, I think next Thursday morning, I believe she focuses on the young ones. So it's kind of
Oh,
good to know who sees who and who
yeah.
does what. And so far, three of you do ART, so that's good for me.
Okay.
Okay. Uh, what's next for you? Anything specific on your radar, on your practice radar for 2024?
Right now, just building since I just got licensed in September. Um, yeah, I don't have anything planned yet.
So stabilizing.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Just realizing.
And did you say you are private pay only, or do you take insurance?
I take insurance. I
Okay.
take Aetna, United Healthcare, Optum, Oscar, TRICARE, and something else that I can't remember right now. But
Okay.
yes,
Very
hey,
good. Very good.
yeah.
Um, where can folks find you?
They can find me. My website is chelsealcounseling.com. And I'm also on Psychology Today and Inclusive Therapists. I don't have any social media. That's another thing I practice for my self-care. I don't use Instagram. Um, it's been a few years now, but yes, they can find my website.
Look at that. I didn't know that about you.
Wow,
Oh,
yeah.
oh wow. I did not know you didn't have any social media. You know
I
TikTok?
have I have Facebook. Oh no, no TikTok. Sorry, my brother was showing me a video on his phone yesterday, and I was like, "Is this TikTok, Instagram?" And he was like, "How old are you?" And I was like, "I do feel really old right now turning the phone." Like, what app is this?
Okay. Okay. I'm not judging. I'm not judging. I mean, you're on the if if I listen to the young people
Mhm.
who I've intersected with, I I would think you're a bit young for
Mhm.
Facebook because I think your demographic is in Instagram and TikTok, but it's
Yes, there
okay. I'm on Facebook. You can hang out. You can
Face
hang out with me.
Facebook has all the groups, and it just is a lot more chill than Instagram and TikTok. I feel like I'm in mid-millennial age. We're the Facebook age.
You're still in the Facebook age.
Exactly.
I think my daughter's on Facebook just to stalk me.
Oh,
That's it.
probably.
To know what I'm doing.
Exactly.
Too funny. Okay, so one more time, folks can find you on your website, which is
Counseling.com.
chelsealcounseling.com. And your hours.
Monday and Wednesday, 9 a.m. to 8 p.m., and then Tuesday and Thursday, 4 p.m. to 8 p.m.
Look at you. I just picked that up, Miss Part Time.
Yes.
Yes. Look at that. And you're in person and virtual.
Ooh, mostly in person.
Okay.
Virtual after a few times, maybe.
Okay.
Hmm.
Okay. Very
Yeah.
good. Awesome. Any last thoughts for
No,
folks?
thank you for having me. This was awesome.
Oh, my pleasure. It is my pleasure. It is actually quite fulfilling to get the chance to see what you all are doing after licensure. Is so cool. So yes, you'll
Videos.
probably, let's see, were you like, I think you were licensed before, were you licensed after Renee? Think
Am I?
you held on a little bit longer after Renee. Um, and then I don't know that anybody after you is on in the lineup,
Okay.
but let's see. Ooh, I was trying to see something. But Caitlin, who's coming up next, Caitlin next Thursday. I was talking to my husband this morning. I think she was my very first supervisee. I think
Wow.
she was my very first supervisee,
Wow.
Caitlin.
Awesome.
I'm trying to think. You were not the last one to get licensed. I think that might have been Brittany.
Brittany was before me,
She
maybe
was
like
before you?
a month
Well,
before.
maybe you were the last one to be the license.
Oh,
We're waiting on Mr. Butler. We're
I
pushing
was
him
just
out.
gonna ask you if you.
Yeah, we're waiting on Mr. Butler. So anyway, this is we are totally live streaming the
Oh yeah,
inside scoop.
please
Good
not
night,
watch.
everybody. We're so happy that you tuned in. If you're catching the replay, please leave some comments. Don't hesitate to send Chelsea a message if you need to reach out to her about her services. Again, I'm Dr. Shanae with the Collective Wellness Institute here in the Tampa area. We also service Virginia remotely. Um, if you are looking for qualified supervisor services, feel free to reach out to me. My email is drsimmons@communityvictory.com. Have a great rest of your week and stay tuned for the next one. I believe Caitlin McGinnis is up next. All right.